Have you ever caught yourself saying, "I'll start tomorrow"? Tomorrow turns into next week. Next week becomes next month. And suddenly, years have passed, and you're still in the same place, waiting for the stars to align. This is the story of Marcus, a man who spent half his life waiting for the perfect moment, until he discovered there's no such thing. Marcus was 32 years old, and his desk drawer told his story better than words ever could. Inside the drawer lived a graveyard of dreams, a half-written novel, a business plan covered in coffee stains, a gym membership card from 2 years ago, still in its plastic wrapper. Every morning, he'd look at that drawer and think, soon, when things are less busy, when I have more money, when I feel ready. But Marcus never felt ready. He worked in an accounting firm, doing work that paid the bills but left his soul empty. His co-workers would talk about their weekend adventures, while he stayed silent. What could he say that he spent Saturday reorganizing his desk? That Sunday disappeared into a blur of social media and self-criticism. The weight of his unlived life pressed down on his chest every night. He'd lie in bed, scrolling through posts of people younger than him launching businesses, writing books, traveling the world. They're lucky, he'd tell himself. They had the right circumstances, the right timing, the right moment. One rainy Tuesday, Marcus arrived at work to find his parking spot taken by a moving truck. The building's oldest tenant, Mr. Chen, was leaving. Marcus had passed the old man's antique shop 1,000 times but never went inside. Today, something pulled him toward the door. The shop smelled of sandalwood and old paper. Mr. Chen was wrapping items in newspaper, moving slowly but purposefully. He looked up and smiled, as if he'd been expecting Marcus. "Everything must go, Mr. Chen said. 40 years in this shop. Now, it's time." Marcus felt compelled to ask, "How did you know it was the right time to start this shop?" 40 years ago. Why are you afraid, Mr. Chen stopped rapping. His eyes settled on Marcus with unsettling clarity, as if he could see through him. "Come," he said, gesturing toward a back room Marcus hadn't noticed. In that room sat a small garden, not outside, but inside a miniature world of carefully tended plants growing under a skylight. In the center stood a tree, maybe 4 feet tall, its branches reaching toward the rain-streaked glass above. "Do you know when I planted this tree?" Mr. Chen asked. Marcus shook his head. "The day I opened this shop, 40 years ago." He touched the trunk gently. "But here's what you need to understand. This tree is a Japanese maple. In nature, in perfect conditions, it grows fast, big, beautiful. But look at mine." The tree was small, twisted, clearly stunted by the limitations of its indoor home. "Every year," Mr. Chen continued, "I told myself, next spring, I'll move it outside. When I have a bigger space, when I have a proper garden, when conditions are perfect." "Do you know what happened?" "It stayed small," Marcus whispered. 40 years I waited for the perfect moment, to give this tree what it needed, and 40 years it stayed trapped in conditions that prevented its growth, not because the tree was weak, because I was waiting." Mr. Chen moved to a workbench where a small sapling sat in a pot. 3 months ago, I planted this one, but this time, I didn't wait. I put it in my apartment's tiny balcony. Rain, wind, cold nights, not perfect conditions. But you know what? Look, the young tree was already showing new growth, its leaves vibrant and reaching. The perfect moment is a lie we tell ourselves when we're afraid, Mr. Chen said. That tree and I wasted 40 years together, both of us waiting. Don't do what I did. Don't let your life become like my maple, small and trapped because you're waiting for perfect conditions that will never come. Marcus felt something crack open inside his chest. All those plans in his drawer, all those somedays and when I'm ready excuses. He was the stunted tree, wasn't he? Waiting in his comfortable pot while life passed by. But what if I fail? Marcus heard himself ask. What if I start and it doesn't work out? Mr. Chen laughed, but not unkindly. That young tree on my balcony last month, a storm nearly destroyed it, broke 3 branches. I thought I killed it by exposing it too soon. But look closer. Marcus leaned in. Where the branches had broken, new growth was emerging stronger, more determined than before. The tree doesn't wait for perfect weather to grow, Mr. Chen said. It grows despite the storms. Maybe even because of them. You understand. That night, Marcus didn't go home. He went to a coffee shop, opened his laptop, and stared at his novel's first chapter written 3 years ago. His hands shook as he positioned his fingers over the keyboard. Every cell in his body screamed that this wasn't the right time. He should wait until he had more experience, until he'd taken the writing course, until he felt more confident. But then he thought of Mr. Chen's maple tree, 40 years in a pot. He started typing. The words were clumsy. The sentences felt awkward. Nothing was perfect. But Marcus kept writing anyway. 2 hours passed, then 4. When he finally looked up, the coffee shop was closing. He'd written 8 pages, 8 messy, imperfect, beautiful pages that existed in the world, instead of just in his head. The next morning, doubt crept back. Who did he think he was? Real writers don't just decide to write. They have degrees, connections, natural talent. Marcus stared at his computer, his finger hovering over the delete button. Then he remembered the young tree on the balcony, growing despite the storm. He didn't delete the pages. Instead, he wrote 8 more. This became his pattern. Every evening after work, instead of scrolling through other people's lives, he lived his own. Some nights he wrote well. Many nights he wrote poorly. But every night, he wrote. 3 months later, Marcus finished his first draft. It wasn't perfect, far from it, but it was done. Something that had lived in his drawer for years as a someday dream now existed. As a completed manuscript, he started submitting it to publishers. Rejection letters came fast. Each one stung. Each one whispered, "See, you should have waited. You weren't ready. You wasted your time." But Marcus had learned something from Mr. Chen's trees. Growth doesn't happen in perfect conditions. It happens despite imperfect ones. Sometimes, it happens because of them. 6 months after finishing his first draft, a small publisher said yes. The book wouldn't make him rich. It wouldn't make him famous. But when Marcus held the first copy in his hands, he understood something profound. The moment he'd been waiting for his entire life had never existed. The only moment that mattered was the one where he decided to stop waiting. A year later, Marcus returned to Mr. Chen's old shop. A new business had moved in, but in the window, he saw something that made him stop. A small Japanese maple tree, finally planted in a proper outdoor container, beginning to reach its full potential. Marcus never learned if Mr. Chen had left it there on purpose, but he understood the message either way. So here's what I want you to hear today. Whatever you're waiting for, the perfect time, the right conditions, the moment when you feel fully ready, it's not coming. That moment is a myth, a comfortable lie that keeps you safe and small and stuck. Your novel won't write itself when you're less busy. Your business won't start itself when you have more money. Your dream won't chase itself when you feel ready. The tree doesn't wait for perfect weather. It pushes through the soil, reaches for the light, and grows in whatever conditions it finds itself in. Yes, you'll make mistakes. Yes, it will be messy. Yes, people might judge you. But you know what's worse than failing? Spending 40 years in a pot, wondering what you could have become if you just had the courage to grow. The perfect moment doesn't exist, but this moment right now, imperfect and uncertain as it is, this moment is yours. What will you do with it? Stop waiting. Start growing. The storm might break a few branches, but that's where the new growth begins. The perfect moment is a myth. Growth happens when you stop waiting and start anyway. The tree doesn't wait for perfect weather to grow. It grows despite the storms, maybe even because of them. Real talk, if you're still watching, this story meant something to you. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. We're building a community of people who refuse to stay stuck. Are you one of them? Prove it. Subscribe now.